This is Page Up with Dr. Angela Lauria, helping you write a nonfiction book that gets clients, drives revenue, and builds credibility. Learn more at pageuppodcast.com. Books started changing my life when I found the Oprah Book Club. Anyone else out there? Oprah Book Club, yeah. And so my whole life, I always loved books, but I saw them for like reading. And really when I connected with, it was actually Return to Love by Marianne Williamson, I realized that books could change people's lives. And I have committed myself to building a business where books do change people's lives. I see many of our authors here and many other authors here, even non-author incubator authors. And I am so grateful as a reader to the work you do to put your work out in the world, because I know that words change people's lives. And behind all of that Oprah Book Club excitement was an amazing woman who inspired me. If you watched Oprah season 25, you might feel like you're already friends with her. I know I did. Now we actually are real life friends. She was executive producer of the Oprah Winfrey Show. She then went over to OWN and was co-president of OWN. And more important than all of that, she is an incredible writer. And her book, The Beautiful No, you will all leave this building with a signed copy of, which I'm very excited to share with you, because it is a memoir that already is changing lives. I'm excited to see how it impacts you, and I'm excited to share this interview with you with our guest. Please join me in welcoming the amazing Sheri Salata! Looking very beautiful on our stage.
She's pretty.
We're streaming to these people over here.
Hi, everyone.
See them? Wave at those people.
Yes, hi, everyone.
We love you, streamers.
Hi.
Go to Amazon.com right now and buy The Beautiful No. And you can imagine Sheri signing it while we talk. Everybody else, she's going to sign your book.
Yes.
Well, I'm super excited to have you. We're billing this as a fireside chat, although I have no fire. I have crystals.
That's right.
But I have no fire available.
I've got a new thing, a crystal side.
It's a crystal side chat. Through the fireside chat, people, we're having a crystal side chat. And we're gonna loop you into this conversation too at the end, so you can be thinking of your questions. But I have to start, obviously we have a room full of authors. You got a front row of authors right here. I have to start with the writing process.
Yes.
Obviously you wrote scripts, you did a lot as an executive producer, you probably wrote contracts as president of OWN, probably less exciting writing.
Less exciting.
I know that you have always seen yourself as a writer,
Right.
but writing a book is a very different thing. Can you take us through
Oh,
the
my
journey?
friend. Well, here's the truth. In a couple sentences, it was a total shit show.
See, we're going to be honest today, people.
Yeah. It was a total shit show, and a year ago, December, Christmas Eve night, I was sitting there thinking about how my book was not done. It was a year late. My wonderful publisher, Karen Rinaldi at Harper Wave, was so patient, but I felt like any minute the call's going to come. What are you doing?
So basically, your agent gets you a deal, they send you a check for some of your advance, and they say, hey ladies, finish this book, and we'll give you the rest of the money. And then what are you doing this whole time?
Well, you know, I took a stab at what was originally pitched, and it wasn't working out, and I just continued to feel like it was one of those things. This is unusual for me, because I am an A student. You give me an assignment, and then you put money on it. I feel like if I can't do that, then I need to be cleaning your house for the next 3 years. So, but there was just something off. I couldn't get to it. I'd start something, I couldn't finish. I do a little bit, and I'm like, that's not really the right thing. And it was Christmas Eve, a year before this last one. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna give them their money back. I don't really need this. This is way too much pressure. I'm not doing it. Because I knew that I was gonna have to open a vein. You know, you're not going to be writing a memoir of stories and not like really take your skin off. I was like, I really don't do that. I'm just not doing it. So, and then it was like, you know, like it was like a Scrooge moment.
Did you feel like
I go to bed, I've been visited by the spirits, and I wake up in the morning and I was like, okay, who gets this amazing opportunity to write your stories and to have them, you know, put out into the world? That is, and who knows that better than me, Oprah's book club producer. You know, it was, you know.
So, but this is what I want to ask you, because I wonder if you knew at the time you could have phoned it in. Like 20 years, like an amazing career.
No way. I couldn't do it.
Do you think that's because you are first and foremost a writer? Like you didn't want your name on something? Because you could have just hired a ghostwriter. You know, I did that for 17 years. I would have written it. I would have interviewed you. I would have asked you. And then what happened?
Right.
I would have written a good book. I was a great ghostwriter.
I know. Well, yes, if I would have had you, that might have worked out really well. But here was the thing. I knew I had to write it myself. I knew I had to take some skin off. I knew I had to really mind for the things, the moments in my life that could be valuable to somebody else. Otherwise, why read it? And so I did. I woke up Christmas morning, having been visited by the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future. And I just went, no, ma'am. You are going to finish this. This is a wonderful opportunity. It is a gift. There's a holy reverence to this, and you're going to do it. And then I spent the next year writing The Beautiful No, and I turned my first draft in December 14th. And
so it was really 1 year.
It was 1 year.
What the hell were you doing? You could have written that a lot.
I know. Well, if I had been here.
But let's talk about that, because a lot of people say they were working on their book for a year, and there's a lot of other stuff happening.
Yeah. I was blinking a lot.
Okay. It's usually Instagram that's the problem, not the blinking. But
yeah.
Do you feel like part of this was you going from the person who was the co-president of OWN, the former executive producer of the Oprah Winfrey Show, to
behind the scenes?
Yeah, give us the real scoop.
Well, of course, that is very. I really liked being a behind the scenes person. That was really my jam, for reals. You know, I like off you go in your hair and makeup, and I will be, you know, I will do whatever, you know, 24/7 behind the scenes. And that felt really, really good. And the first time I was in front of the scenes was when there was the docuseries season 25 over behind the scenes. And it turns out there was a lot of Sheri behind the scenes. And
did you guys watch season 25? Yeah. Like that was amazing. But it really was the Sheri Salata show.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I know.
We all got to know you, so it felt so personal.
Yes.
I know it's reality TV, but for me, you were sort of the icon of the wind beneath my wings for everyone, for Oprah, of course.
Well, yeah, and
but
for sure.
Didn't you all want your own Sheri Salata? You're like, I could be amazing if there was someone who would just do.
I want one.
I
want a Sheri Salata.
Did you want one?
Yeah, I'm devoted. I was devoted. You know, devoted. I was completely devoted, and part of being a behind the scenes person is that you substitute, you know, you really take somebody else's goals and values and dreams and make that your mission. And lucky for me, I was in such alignment with that it was like, whoa, you know, this is really great. But, you know, I like, you know, one of your company's missions is the servant's heart. And that's what if I were to say if there was any key to my move up the ladder at the Oprah Show, it was my heart. I have a servant's heart. Yeah. So yes, it took longer because all of a sudden I'm going to be out there and I'm going to be like, ooh, people are going to read that. And then, and also too, there were events that had happened, things that had a deep, deep well of like a heart opening, like my spiritual, you know, evolution that involved very difficult topics that I hadn't really explored. My little brother, who's 8 years younger than me, died suddenly during season 24. And I basically just went into producer mode to get my family through it and went back to work. And I knew that was the thing I saved for last to write, because I knew it wasn't just going to be like some other things are like looking back at all my shenanigans, trying to find the right job and all that hilarity. That's like looking back and being like, I'm at a cocktail party, I have you there, and I'm just going to tell you all the stuff I did and the mistakes I made. And we're just going to have a big hoot and holler over that. But there were certain things in my life that writing those chapters was going to be an actual emotional event.
So what I love about that is that's actually one of my tips for our authors.
Yeah.
Is you start with the easiest chapters
Yes.
first. Most people want to write in order.
Yes.
But if you write the chapters that are easiest for you to write, I
Right.
think it's easier to find your voice.
You're very, very wise, because I would never have gotten off the ground otherwise. Because it was looming, and I'd be like, don't think about it. You'll write that last, and by then you'll be ready. And so literally, I like rented a house in another land, and outside of where I lived, to go and really sit with that. And it was.
Let's talk about your writing schedule, because rent a house in another land is
Yeah.
another one of our author secrets we
Yes.
tell people to do. But what was your writing schedule like? Where did you write? How many hours did you write at a time? How'd you set that up?
I usually wake up in the morning with like what I call downloads. It's like
We know about
I
that.
prime myself at night to say, I just like let go what happened during the day. I visualize like a magnificent tomorrow if I'm lucky enough to wake up for it. And usually when I first wake up, an idea will pop in. Like each of the chapters is really like a standalone. You could read each of the chapters in my book and it stands alone. It isn't like a straight memoir. And I needed to have an idea for each one of them. Like, what's the structure going to be? How am I going to talk about it? Is this funny? Is this, do I want you to be there with me? Am I going to like bring you around my virtual campfire and say, okay, let's have our s'mores, and I'm gonna spin some yarns for you? How am I going to walk you through, that particular story? And once I had the idea for what my structure was going to be or how I was going to tell it, then the rest was then the writing of it was okay. So here's what I did. Here's like my funniest thing. I'm like, I want to be a coffee shop writer. I want to be able to tell you, I go to coffee shops, and that's where I do a lot of my just take my laptop. I'm at this coffee shop, I'm in that one, I'm that one. I really like the independence. But on this particular day, I'm at Starbucks, at the fancy Starbucks Reserve, moves into Los Feliz, California. So it's really, it's a very short drive from my house. In I go, and I see a space at the counter. And what I love about coffee shops nowadays, people are freaking running empires from those coffee shops. Like back in my day, like you go get a cup of coffee and you got to get to work, because you're working for somebody. These people are like running their dreams from their laptops, and there's something about that that's very appealing to me. So in I go, I get my seat at the counter, I'm like nodding at everybody, I get my coffee, and I'm sitting there, and now I have my laptop, and I'm like getting ready to play the keys. And the guy next to me has his headphones on, and he's listening to Whitney Houston's greatest hits. And he thinks he has a good voice. And I'm like, oh my God, you're not going to sing the whole time, sir? And I was like, okay. It's one of those things where my whole afternoon was taken up with, okay, like maybe if I jar him and let him know I'm here. So it wasn't always successful to go do the coffee shop thing. I had a room in my house I would go to. I would take my laptop whenever I was out of town.
Did you like to write for a long stretch, or do you like to kind of write for an hour, then get back to your garden, all the things, get back to your puppies?
Yes, it was stretches. It was stretches of inspiration, and I tried to make it really disciplined. For a while there, it was just like, wow, no inspiration for the last 2 weeks. It's like, well, that's not going to work. Then I would force myself to sit and be like, you will sit here until you're inspired. The thing that gets a little tricky with a laptop these days, it's like a playground of things. Everything's on it. Stop the notifications, but there's still there's everything I'd rather do but write this story right now.
Yeah.
So that's a little something I got to overcome.
So you wrote this book.
Yes.
It's most people will not have read it yet. It just came out a week ago, but it's very intimate. It's very raw. When I read the book, I told you this, it felt like my memoir because it goes through your life, but so much of your life was my life. I track my life by Oprah episodes.
Yes.
And so do you, it turns out, just for very different reasons.
Yes.
But I also track my life, and you've seen the film that was made about me, The Weight of Success. I also track my life by Oprah's weight loss journey.
Yeah.
And you talked about that in a way that most people are not honest and as forthcoming about their weight loss journey. I've lost 100 pounds 5 times.
I know. The first time I met you and you told me that, I was like,
yeah, I just like to track Oprah. I'm just trying to one-up her.
Yeah.
But one of the few things I have not done, and I've done it all, Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, nutritionist, I've done all the things.
Yes.
But the only thing I haven't done, I'm up 30 pounds right now. I'm super upset about my weight. I'm the world is going to end because I'm gaining weight again. And so I made a decision about a week before I got your book that I was going to go get lipo. And this was going to solve all of my problems, which are primarily in my thighs. Once I solve the problems of my thighs, everything else will be easy. And I read a story in The Beautiful No about your experience with lipo.
That chapter's called Chasing Beauty. Now, first of all, I'm just going to call you out and tell you, you are far too spiritually advanced right now.
I know, isn't that bullshit?
Because here's the thing. It totally is. But here was the thing. So it's 2000. We have a little workout group at Harpo, and somebody comes back and says, who had a life-threatening surgery, and she goes, yeah, but look at me now. I had some liposuction. And
Did she look great, though? Tell me the truth.
She was happy. She was glowing. She was super happy. And I'm like, geez, we're training for a half marathon. Maybe if I just whip in for some liposuction during the break, then, and I'll just zippity-doo-dah right to the finish.
It's really good to me.
I go and meet with the surgeon. And here's what he said. He said, weight loss, liposuction is not a weight loss strategy. And I'm like, okay. Anyway, then he said, and I go, how much weight do you suck out? And he goes, now, and this is how I remember it. He probably would sue me if I said his name or whatever. And I really think he said 8 to 10 pounds. I'm like, really? And he goes, but it can't just be one area. It would have to be your thighs and your hips. I'm like, done, sir. Done, sir. So I literally went through that. And I remember that morning, I went off for it like I was going to have a facial. May have packed my purse, maybe we'll have lunch later, blah, blah, blah. No, it's major surgery, my friends. I was on I'm like, is this, I need morphine, people! This is terrible! It was folly. It was folly. But those are the kinds of things that I would always look for the external solution to what is a spiritual issue. I would be like, what is the quick fix? What is the program? What is the thing? What can I sign up for?
Maybe
What's
you
the
didn't
magic
have enough information
Oh,
about
my God.
spirituality.
Yes.
Did you ever meet any authors?
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe there's some book Eckhart Tolle, Marianne Williams. I can
That's the
recommend.
paradox.
Chopra.
That's the paradox, and that's the inexplicable thing. Even through this whole book, I can't totally explain it to you. How I can have a front row seat, be a straight A student, have all the information, take all the notes, and yet not make taking care of myself my number one priority. And that really is, that's the thing that in these last 3 years, since I've become an entrepreneur and an author and living a very, very, very different life where radical self-care is something I think about. Like meditations are not missed, like I'm doing the thing. And I still cannot explain to you why I was sitting in that EP chair with a ponytail, 50 lattes a day, gallons of Diet Coke, and outside smoking. I can't explain that to you. Why I couldn't take that information and put it in my bones. It was like those were all my habitual stress relievers, and until I cleared some real space in my life, I really couldn't figure that out or see that. And then because I told you this, I was just on Dr. Oz the other day. This is a thing I find absolutely, this breaks my heart a little bit. So he has me on, super nice of him. I'm not a big star by any means. And in all I go,
at least a little.
My name's up on the big screen. We sit there and I write about him in one of the chapters. And I confess that I would always, whenever he was at Harpo, I would run from him. I'd be like, "Hi, I'm Dr. Oz," and I'd scurry away. And so we got on and he said, I understand there's a confession about me in your book. And I said, yes. And here's what it is. Because I was a smoker, I didn't want to be near you enough where you could smell it on me and really judge me harshly, like, are you an idiot or what, Sheri? So I'd just be like, hi. Don't look at me. Don't look at how I'm being. Don't look at my physical state. Don't look at how I'm handling stress. Don't look. I will just wave to you from afar. And I really, really liked him. So here's what he says on television. All the cameras are going, studio audience. He goes, "You know what I thought?" And I go, "What?" Because I thought you didn't like me.
Oh.
Now, that was a moment we healed it up. I go, well, let's have that healing because I adore you. I revere you. But I went away from that and I thought, there was a lot of hiding because of shame, because of humiliation, because of all kinds of things like that. How many other times have I been cut off and disconnected from that soul-to-soul connection with people because of my addictions and my habits? And they thought one thing, and I'm really just like, I'm just hiding myself a little.
Yeah.
Like I'm out there all the time, I'm working my ass off, but I'm hiding myself a little. And I was like, oh my God, this is such a revelation to me that that's the loss. And the loss is mine.
So being an amazing executor, operator, as EP, as president of OWN, I think being the wind beneath people's wings is the way a lot of us have chosen to hide. It's very good. It's better than heroin. It's good. And you have come out of hiding, my love.
I have.
You've got a podcast. You guys listen to the Sheri and Nancy Show. You have an amazing podcast. Subscribe now on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. You've got 100,000 people every episode listening to you. Like, you are now out front.
Yeah.
That's a struggle that a lot of our authors go through. They want to be out front, but then the cost of that feels too high. Can you share with us some of your tips, some of the things that you think that made it easier for you to become the person who puts herself out there?
Well, in the day-to-day of it, it's still super uncomfortable from time to time. And when I have to take myself aside, like this morning we did 2 affiliate interviews, right? And here in DC. And I have to take myself aside because, I used to accompany Oprah to her affiliate interviews and wait in the green room and be like, that was great, you're so great. So, then it's like, oh God, it feels hard for me. But
all the producers are total super fans. When she's in the room, they're like, "Can we show you our control room?" She's like in there looking at all their buttons. It was great.
Yeah. But I remind myself, here's what I do. I quiet my mind and think, this isn't about you. This really is about your message. And if it's valuable to somebody, that's great. And it isn't about you, it's about that.
What do you, like, give us the message. What makes it worth it? What's the message in your head?
What are you saying? What do you mean?
What is the message that makes it worth it? What's
it's the message. It's my story. It's the message. It's never too late to live the life of your dreams. And if not now, when? If not now, when? And it's the only conversation I want to have because I need to have it. I need to keep reminding myself of it. I need to keep repeating it. I need to keep making sure that I'm surrounding myself with people who are willing to have the same conversation with themselves. So, and then that if not now, when, I'm in the middle of life. That's what my podcast co-host Nancy and I call it. We ditched midlife. That just sounded sad. But I'm in the middle of life. So what does that mean? If you have another 40, 50 years maybe left, you've got a whole new set of glory days to create. And if not now, when? When are you going to live that whole life? I know that I manifested the career of many people's dreams, but I didn't manifest the life of my dreams. And I still get a chance to do that. And what does that mean? And that requires me going back to the dream station. What do I want? What do I really dream of having in all the areas of my life? So if not now, when? And then also for me, there was another little parens. And if not now, maybe never. Mm-hmm. Because I have demonstrated in my life an absolute master level talent at going unconscious for years at a time. It's like I could talk to you about meditation until you fell asleep in your chairs and not sit down and meditate. Because I love talking about it, I love producing it, and that's what I finally, being out in the world now where I'm around lots of transformational people and leaders and teachers and things, and here's what I see. You can talk about transformation, you can learn how to market transformation, you can sell transformation, but at the end of the day, you must be transformation. Only you can be transformed. You must be the expert of your life. And it's so interesting that with all that experience I have, that it's only now that I'm willing to take a real shot at being the expert of my own life.
So what you're saying there sounds like you're lobbying for more of a work-life balance. Maybe you should have taken it easy, had an easier career, done more meditation, less producing episodes. Like, is it just that you picked a job that was too hard?
No, I'm not really saying that at all. So here's really what I'm saying.
Did you tell this directly to my employees?
Yeah.
They're in the room.
But here's what I'm really saying is it really didn't matter. You can have an 80, 90 hour a week job and still have a very rich rest of your life. If you're not mindlessly numbing out in front of TV, stuffing your face with pizza because you had a hard week, opening up the second bottle of Chardonnay because you really deserve it after all of that. Like all those hours that you spend, not in meditation, it is like you gotta take, if you want to have that kind of, I really call it creativity and innovation, like pillar. Like it's like a privilege to be able to create and innovate. Then you've got to be super disciplined about how the rest of your time is spent. You really do. So
do you think you could have had the job you had at Oprah
for sure
in a different way?
For sure. I just used the difficulty and the all-consumingness of that job to avoid the other areas of my life that were difficult for me. I always got an A at work. It's like lots of validation there. Never mind about these other difficult areas. Lots of validation in that area. So yeah, and here's the other thing I want to say. And I write about it in the book. The chapter's called My Epic Fail at Work-Life Balance. And the truth is, I finally realized I really don't believe in that. I'm really not going to take someone else's construct of a good life and keep applying it to mine if it just makes me feel bad. I'm not going to use that language. I'm not going to use any kind of artifice that's created outside of myself to decide how I'm going to assemble, create, and structure my life. I'm not going to do it. And every time I hear that phrase, work-life balance, I go, lots of failure there. Lots of failure going on. And I feel like, especially for women, we use that phrase to make ourselves miserable and guilty and wrong. And I just really, here's what I say, all you writers, words matter. They are our creative tools. And you must choose them very carefully when you're talking about yourself if you want to have the life of your dreams. And that doesn't work. You know what the whole thing of balance is? You're always out of it and coming back in it. Always out of it and coming back in it. Always out of it and coming back in it. It's like, it works in architecture. It works in tree pose. It doesn't really work in a regular life. But here's what works, this idea. So try this on for size. Looking at your life as a landscape, a lifescape, and deciding how you're gonna, like, really doing those practices that really put you in touch of what makes you feel good, and then flowing yourself that way. And it's bringing the best you to a career situation, whether or not it's your dream career. It's like knowing, being so spiritually in tune that you know it's not about that job. But those people are your people. Those are the people that you're here to uplift and support until your next opportunity comes. That it's so much bigger than those tasks.
I feel like you paid attention during a new word. That
Oh,
was
I
a very
know.
good Eckhart Tolle
Wasn't that
symposium
good?
in actual English.
I love
That's
that guy.
everything I learned in that
Love
book.
guy. He's like a delicious gnome.
I was
from
gonna say
another
elf,
world.
gnome.
No, I love him so much. He is the real deal. I mean, like, listen, as a producer, I just sweat bullets because you'd ask him a question and he will sit there for 3 minutes until the answer comes, and it's like, tick tock. You know, there's times I want to be like, come on!
But then it would be really good.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay,
The love.
my favorite thing about your book
Yeah.
is it made me feel like we were friends when I was reading it. I felt like we were hanging out. And so I want everybody else to have a taste of that now. If we were just hanging out and talking,
Yes.
and you were telling me about your craziest day on the Oprah Winfrey Show, tell us a great story about the hardest show you produced or the funniest thing that happened or something we wouldn't know that's not in the book. Give us some secret inside dish, inside what it was like to be creating the Oprah Winfrey Show.
Oh,
I could start rattling off. my
I'm just
favorite
thinking, well,
episodes.
okay, the hardest thing I ever did with the team and I, that the United Center was super hard because we taped 2 big gigantic shows in front of 16,000.
That was the one where Tom Hanks walked
Oh
up.
yeah, every
celebrity
star
in
on the
world.
planet flew in. It was really hard because we also had our day jobs. So we were doing that like in our spare time. And the team was ringing it out. It was like, woo! And then the Chicago Bulls and the Blackhawks had to either lose or win certain games to get out of the United Center so we could do a takeover and literally build a Super Bowl set in 24 hours.
That sounds
And-
easy.
And it's just kind of like we just put all our cards on red, and then just went spin the roulette. And it was really like oh my gosh, I went in
It's
that
good
day.
for a cortisol response.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
and then just like breathe. Walking through that, I'm like, are those lights is that rigging gonna stay up in the ceiling once people come in? Beyonce is there in a darkened United Center with only half the stage up, and she and her dancers are, I'm like, okay, people, we're gonna let the audience in at 4:00. Is this gonna work? I mean, it was hard. That was really hard. There was always
I want to
funny-
talk about the flash mob because we just did
Yeah.
a couple of authors up front. We just did our first flash mob. They
You
published
did?
their books.
Nice.
And we celebrated with a flash mob in Georgetown Harbor. I did not practice the most. Tell us how the Black Eyed Peas flash mob came to be.
Yes, this was do you remember there was a viral wedding video where all the people walked down the aisle doing like flash mobby things? And I think that inspired one of our producers who said, let's try to do that. Well, it was gonna be like, okay, it's gonna be a little thing. Next thing you know, and this is everybody, this is ideas and execution from seriously the best team in television. Pull this together, and next thing, we're shutting down the streets of Chicago. We are building an epic, gigantic stage. The Black Eyed Peas are all in. We have some guy at the time and his company who would go in. They you saw the videos. They would take over Grand Central Station and stuff like, in they come, we advertise, we need dancers, and, you know, I was like, is this gonna be like a big mess, or is this gonna work? I couldn't even believe it. Honestly, I went to the rehearsal the night before and stood there like I was gonna be Oprah the next day, who had no clue anything was happening. And I'm like, her head's gonna blow off her body. This is the most amazing, like, just rows and rows and rows and rows to that song. I mean, it was so crazy. It was
I
great.
bet, when you hear the song today, do you have a little PTSD?
Yeah, I have a good,
feeling.
well, I have a good
feeling.
Well, you know what, it was so great, and it was brilliant, and it was genius on the part of the team, and they totally pulled it off. And that's not a small thing. You know, we weren't doing one show a week or one show every 2 weeks. We were doing 6 shows a week, and that was one of them. So there was still 5 other shows to do that week. And it was great.
Wow. You've got like the best stories. I know other people have questions in the audience. I feel like I want to turn it over to you guys. Do you have questions for Sheri that you would like to ask her? Yeah, there's one up here. I think we have a mic runner. Who's our mic runner? Somebody bringing her a mic?
I can say it out loud.
Yeah.
Just for the stream, and I would just hate for the people on the stream to miss it. And so Ray is going to bring you a microphone. Hello, streamers. See, we have your best wishes in our hearts. Millie, you want to hit us with the mic on? Here we go.
Well, I just wanted to, my name is Nyada Cowherd, and I'm a producer.
I met you this morning.
Yes. Piggyback off of that, you said you had 6 shows a week to put together. How many people worked on the staff?
There was a lot. I mean, I was trying to figure it out. I don't know if I totally remember, but it felt like we had 10 teams there'd be like a supervisor producer had 2 or 3 producers. Those producers had 4 or 5 people on their teams. By the end there, it was a very, very robust. And then the support staff was just awesome, from legal to promos, which is where I grew up. Everybody they were just total pros. I mean, just the best. We could do things like, we're going to Australia. Not sure how we're doing it, but off we go.
Awesome. Who else? Crystalline up front. Ray, you will recognize her. She's the best-selling author
Oh my gosh.
and helps people write fiction.
Wow, thank you. So my name is Crystalline. I am one of Angela's incubated authors. So proud and grateful. And I'm also extremely grateful for your chapter about Kissy, the dogs.
Yes.
My husband is very into dogs.
Thanks
I love
for
dogs.
asking.
The work you did was amazing. Thank you for being that person
Yes.
for them. Also, you've had access to so many spiritual leaders, health leaders, all these things that could help live a full holistic life. Which would you recommend, or what would you recommend to someone just trying to get into it? What's a good starting point?
Well, I mean, when I look back on it, I can see how there was an unfolding for me. I was raised Catholic. I got to college and I'm like, I'm done with that. And it's not like I don't have respect for it, because I think anything can be your practice, actually, if the core center of it is love. But for me, the turning point was Marianne Williamson's Return to Love. And I was like, whoa, okay. And then it just kind of unfolded. And I think for all of us, you find your language. You know, we're all going to the same place at our own pace and our own way. You find your language. What is the language that lights you up? And Deepak lights me up. The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, I think, is outrageously simple and fantastic. Eckhart, I've had some great moments of clarity. Iyanla, she just gets right to I love her language about things. And I think over time, everything layers and layers and layers, everything developed. And then now for me, and probably for the last 15 years, I don't know how many people listen to Abraham Hicks.
You're in the right room.
That's my thing. That's my jam. That's my language. No middleman. I don't need any other experts. I can revere them and love them and bring them together on the podcast and some of the other live events and other platforms that I'm doing because I understand that was necessary for me. But I kind of feel like when Esther Hicks becomes Abraham, I'm just totally plugged into what's going
Straight
on.
to the source.
Yeah.
Sure, Nina Sosman, Nina Sosman-Pogue, another incubated author.
Another very thankful
And
incubated
journalist.
author and a former journalist. I did television for about 20 years. My question, I loved your work-life balance answer because that's one that I've sort of had in my heart for a long time as well, that there's not really a work-life balance, that it is your life is your life. But I'm curious at this point, now that you've stepped away and you're doing this piece where you're being an entrepreneur, do you have an assistant? Do you have a regimented, like, I'm gonna work 10 to 3,
I don't.
10 to 3 and then I'm gonna turn it off? How are you doing now that you're not institutionalized anymore?
Right.
How are you doing this?
Well, I just moved from LA in January to Napa Valley. So now all of a sudden it's like slow. I have, there's a great podcast called Slow Home. And I love the host, Brooke McAllery. She's really great. So it's like it's way slowed down. And yet, and I had like full-time lots of things, which I don't anymore. And I have, a little help here and there. I really should fire myself as my own assistant. It's embarrassing how incompetent I am.
Your dogs have a significantly better pool of staff.
Yes, they really do. They always do, and always have. But here's what I find, interestingly enough, what I have to keep my eyeballs on in myself is that tendency to go into that to do, make it happen. And they're like, okay, so book launch, right? I gotta I can start to feel that old energy and those old patterns kind of rise up. And I just say to myself, that's not what you're doing anymore. You want to be magnetic. You want to draw opportunities like this into your life. You want to be in flow. And you don't want to be hammering and dragging the boulders up the mountain. So that's what I focus on. Like, I go, this doesn't feel good.
But I've watched you work this process.
Yeah.
It's not like you woke up one day and that was done. Like,
No.
there were times when we've talked where you're like, what do you think I should do for lunch? Let's put together
Yes.
the plan. And I like build
Yes.
this whole funnel and I'm whiteboarding
Yes.
and you're like, yeah, let's do it. And then by the end of the call, you're like, I think maybe I'll just see what happens.
Yeah. I can get whipped up really quick.
I get so excited. I'm like, let's produce something. And you're like, or
Yes.
take some
Or-
deep breaths.
Or yes, or I'm going to see what the universe delivers to me.
Right.
Because I've already asked for everything. So it's, I'm tweaking it. I continue to tweak.
And you
What is that
so
recipe?
do your own work. Like, that's the thing to me that's so powerful. Because I think everyone's like, well, if I had the access to the wisdom you had, like I would just have the knowledge, then we would all act like Eckhart Tolle all the time.
Right.
Done. We're fully baked. Like, but for me, it's a process. I'm like, I get it, and then I forget it, and I'm there, and I'm in the zone, and then the zone is gone, and it's this constant
That's
process
right.
of like coming back to myself.
Here is my big learning for myself, and maybe this will be helpful for people here. It's a net game. So, before it was always all or nothing for me, and I'd end up with nothing. It's like, lose 60 pounds in 30 days or nothing.
Or United
Or
Center or
pizza for
nothing.
6 months. It's like that. It's like all or nothing. And now where I'm netting out here is the net game. Like I make 6 steps forward. I may take 3 steps back. I'm 3 steps net. I'm forward. I'm elevated. And I'm like that perfection thing. I think that is a secret plan for self-sabotage. Because you'll be like, well, nobody's perfect. So right away, you're not even out of the gate and you can like give up on something. So I really watch how I speak about things. And I would say the biggest thing that I've changed for myself is I pay very close attention to that voice in my head and the tone and the story. And my commitment to myself is that voice is going to be tender and that story is going to be compassionate. Because left running wild, it is the harshest voice on the planet. It is the most judgmental of me out of any human being on the planet. And I really want to live this next half of my life loving myself most, where there's not another person on this planet who loves, cherishes, and treasures me more than me.
Shivani, did I see that you have a question? This is turmeric expert Shivani Gupta has a question for you, and then you can ask her a question about turmeric later.
So my question, I teach Ayurvedic self-care, and you mentioned radical self-care. And I love being in the background, and then when you push yourself forward at the front and say your message, in your life, how are you maintaining self-care to constantly like fill your cup
Right.
to do this work out front?
Well, remember I was saying to you earlier that I was a big program girl. Like I'd get the book, I'd get the outfits, I'd do the whole thing, the charts, the downloads, and then that would, and then that would fizzle. And that's not true of everybody, but that's my way. And what I've come to see is that it's the life of your dreams is a very personal recipe. And that's why I keep waiting for an expert to come along and do the work for me, to tell me like, here's the life of your dreams, Sheri Salata. Try these little things and it will all be there. And now I finally, and that it sounds kind of silly, but it's really true. That you're just waiting for someone to come and ding you on your head and tell you that you're the one who has to tell yourself everything's gonna be okay. You're the one who has to have your own back. You're the one who has to do the dreaming. You have to do the dreaming. You have to make time for the dreaming. What is it? What is my soul crying for? What is my heart yearning for? And maybe it's a new car, and maybe it's a new life, whatever that may be. So when I'm like, okay, I see what this is. It's a personal recipe that is not set in stone. That every day requires a little tweaking and a little thought and a little tending. It's like a campfire. You got to keep going. You have to keep thinking about it. It isn't one and done. You don't write it down in a notebook and set your goals and then visit it next January 1st. It's a living, breathing thing in your life that you have to like tend to. It's clay you're creating. And that's what those practices really are. It's shifting that mindset from, I have to meditate, I have to work out, I have to eat a salad. That kind of thinking to, I'm gonna put my hands in the clay today of my own life. And I'm gonna play with it. I'm gonna try some things.
All right, Ray, I'm going to ask you to take the microphone and hand it to Mila. Our last question is coming from our chief of staff who you met earlier.
Oh my God.
I always let her have the last word. It served me well. Yeah. So, Mila, hit us with a question. I know you have one.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Sir Richard Branson just 2 weeks ago.
Oh, geez.
Very simple. What is the most ordinary thing you've never done?
What is the most ordinary thing you've never done? Mila can tell you Richard Branson's answer if that would help.
Richard was so confused. He's like, what is yours? I have many. I told him I've never been to Arby's. And then he's like, what's Arby's?
She's been to Arby's. I know she has.
Times.
Yeah.
That's not mine.
That's not yours.
That's not
He
mine.
said, was it driving? What did he say
He
next?
says he doesn't drive anymore,
Yeah.
but that's because his family won't let him. He wrecked his car 3 times. He doesn't go grocery shopping
Oh,
anymore.
grocery
He used to.
shopping.
I know. I mean, listen, I've lived an ordinary life. I was raised in Waukegan, Illinois, to a middle class family. I'm Polish, Lithuanian, Swedish, and Scots-Irish, and we all hung out. I've done all the ordinary things. It's been an amazing, magnificent, ordinary life.
With all the celebrities in the world.
I'm very
ordinary
like
with
you guys. I sat there
Tom
going,
Hanks.
I can't believe I'm having dinner with Tom Hanks. No, I never got cynical or like, I was never over it. But honestly, the more I was around that, I thought, wow, that fame thing is a very hard thing to navigate. It's very hard. You better have your feet on the ground or you are going to be in big, big trouble. You're going to misunderstand what love is, all kinds of things. So like ordinary things, I've done them all. I mean, I was thinking, can I sew a button on? Yeah, I've done that. I guess I have. What is the ordinary thing I haven't time.
You have to report back to us.
I know, I'm gonna have to think about it. I
I'm
don't
gonna
know.
hang out tomorrow, so we'll talk about
I
it.
know. I'll think about it. I mean, here's one thing that's very ordinary for many, many women, but I've never had a baby.
Oh, that was a good answer.
I've never had a baby. And there were times, I remember when we did an Oprah show on, there was this glut of Chinese girls who were getting like tossed aside, and there was all this adoption thing, and I go, maybe I'll have a Chinese baby. And I was, really talking about that and thinking about it. And, just things never, like as much as I thought I wanted that life, I could not make it come together. It was always the wrong guy, and well, it's not gonna work out, and time's a ticking, and I gotta work, and we got another season. So I could not make that work out. And what's so interesting now is I can sit back a little bit and see that really my soul in the universe was in cahoots, like, yes, because you think that he'll fix your VCR, he'll make sure there's air in your tires, that all your electronic stuff works. There's still a little part of me that was ready to parcel off the responsibility of things.
That was a good answer. She did better than Richard. I feel like you had that covered. So before Sheri's gonna go sign books, but before you go sign books, I would love for you to read a little bit of
I'm
yours
gonna read a
to
couple
us.
paragraphs to you.
Awesome. And then people get to spend the weekend. Like, I highly recommend carving out a day or two on a beach or a couch to just devour this one all up.
I'm gonna put two.
I was gonna say, do you need me to pick a passage, or do you
little
have?
tiny sections together.
Okay.
I want to leave you with this little bit of a gift, which is really, really from my heart. It's the last chapter. It's called "You Are What You Dream," and here's how it goes. The story is always ours to write. That is the crystal clear, relentless truth. Whether we're aware of it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not, we are writing our story every single day of our lives. I certainly wrote mine. Some years, my story was about the privilege of serving a worldwide audience, producing television that I felt mattered, feeling so appreciative that I got to spend my days steeped in dream making. Other years, I penned a yarn about sleep deprivation, anxiety, and mountains of pizza, about wondering if opening another bottle of Chardonnay while alone would be a sign of trouble. It is. I got to live that fully too. As my spiritual life deepened, I could begin to make out the invisible patterns, the mystical tapestry of all of it, how a thought would gather other thoughts like it, creating momentum and an outcome, how a chance meeting could lead to a total twist of fate that transformed everything. Then I'd see that it wasn't chance at all, but more like divine intelligence, a story of creation that is being orchestrated by the mix of my well-tended energy field and the limitless field of quantum dreams. The trick to the full-on joyride is staying in that big field, staying in that wide open space of light and appreciation and miraculous wonder where most everything you ever wanted surrounds you, and the rest is becoming manifested. Keeping your capacity to dream sharp and energized because it is your most powerful creative tool, not trapping yourself in another blah blah ho-hum story you can't seem to stop repeating, a choice that will prove, if not fatal, then final. It is the secret of the secret, the deepest and truest of this life. The formula for a happy life is choosing happiness, deliberately choosing it. And you know you've done that when you feel good. All the daily, weekly, and monthly practices and choices that create those good feelings are the only tools you need. When you don't feel good, it's time to rewrite the story you're telling yourself. It's time to choose new words. It's time to conjure the tiniest willingness to try something different, to turn ever so slightly in a new direction. And only you can do that for yourself. The simplicity of this truth is its power. Happy people have happy lives. Happy people take better care of themselves. Those happy people who love themselves so completely spill that abundant love all around them into the lives of their dreams. And we're supposed to live the lives of our dreams.
Please join me in
If you're ready to build your business with a book, take my free class at pageuppodcast.com.